now.
Ladies and gentlemen,
please fasten your seatbelts.
Welcome to PreneurCast.
Yeah, business cards being swapped, beers being drunk.
Can I say a nasty word? Can I say procrastination?
With Pete Williams and Dom Kocher.
How well did that go down?
We can talk about that entire thing in a very another rant and soapbox episode if we want to.
Visit us online at PreneurMedia.tv.
Welcome, everybody, to this week's PreneurCast with me, Dom Goucher, and my co-host, Pete Williams. Hey, Pete.
Hey, how's things?
Great, mate, great. Good to have you back again.
Fantastic.
I'm still just getting used to you being here, just, still like reliably week after week, so... I missed you, buddy.
You handled the show quite well by yourself, mate. You're all under control.
Very kind of you to say so, sir. Just controlled panic in the background.
It's not the fish underwater. It's the duck underwater. It's the little legs paddling furiously underwater.
That's the one, mate. That's the one. We look graceful on the surface, but underneath it's all going like crazy.
Big week.
Do you know what? It's getting a bit normal to be a big week around here, mate. It's like I think maybe we should. Yeah, we should ask each other if it's been a quiet week, really, shouldn't we?
We should.
How's the normality of being married sinking in?
Yeah, so far so good. Nothing too different, really. It's all pretty much the same. Nothing's really changed, so that's a good thing.
I want you to know I'm going to edit that out, and I will not let your good lady wife hear that little normality comment. Okay, let's crack on with this week's show. Now, before we do, as always, just like to have a thank you to our sponsors. The first sponsor for this week is, again, Audible Books. And I wouldn't be at all surprised, Pete, if you listened to a few audiobooks while you're away on your honeymoon. And Audible is our supplier of choice for audiobooks. A great service. They've got over 100,000, and I'm going to have to increase that number, I'm sure, soon, but over 100,000 books and titles of all varieties, not just business and personal development, but fiction as well. Excellent quality audio, read very often by the author, usually always read very well by somebody interesting. And if you head on over to audibletrial.com/PreneurCast, you can get a free trial and a token or coupon to download a free audiobook. So pop over and give that a try. It's a great way to consume books and just keep up to date while you're doing other things. And as I've mentioned before, it's when I'm doing the dishes is one of those times that I tend to catch up on my audiobooks.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend of mine this week who's just started running, and she was talking about listening to music and stuff while she runs and finds that a bit boring. So I suggested that she do some audiobooks sort of stuff, and love the idea. And the feedback so far has been that it's been very engaging for her to sort of get lost in a story or an autobiography while she's been running. So it sort of takes her mind off the actual task of running, because she kind of gets lost in the book, which makes the time pass a lot quicker, which is fantastic.
That is actually a great tip. I mean, if I'm not listening to an audiobook, I catch up on my podcast listening while I'm cycling to the office in the morning. It's a good 15, 20-minute ride, but it's the same ride every day. And so it can get a bit monotonous, and there's a few hills that I'm not that keen on. But I find that having something to listen to does help me keep going. So, good tip.
Very nice.
Okay, now last week you mentioned the mysterious marketing verbs and marketing nouns, which just brought back kind of high school English and cold sweat. So I'm hoping you're going to make this one a little bit more a grown-up conversation. So where did this whole idea come from? Because I love not only your ideas and your perspective on stuff, but I also like to know where you get these ideas from, because I find it's usually quite an interesting story.
Well, look, in terms of this, I don't really know the story yet of where it sort of come from. It's just been an idea that's been bubbling away for quite a while, and I think it's a good way to look at your marketing, because if we break down to start with nouns versus verbs. When it comes to nouns, they're words to name something, a person, a place, an animal, or a thing. Whereas when you break up and look at verbs, verbs are the actions, events, or states of being. So that's sort of the difference from a dictionary perspective. So if we look at marketing nouns then, what we're talking about is marketing to people, animals, places, things. Fundamentally, let's think of marketing nouns as marketing to a target audience. So in the context of a real estate agent, you're basically marketing to homeowners in, I don't know, Pennsylvania, United States, who need roof tiling. You know, if you're actually a roof tiler, you can sort of get that demographic. So it's basically marketing around nouns. And a sentence I wrote down was a way to sort of think about this is I market to insert noun in noun who need nouns. So, you know, I market to homeowners in Alberta, Canada who need roof tiling. Those things are all nouns. Homeowners, Alberta, Canada, it's a place, who need roof tiling. It's kind of like a thing or an abstract idea. So that's how most people generally look at their marketing. They think of it from a noun perspective in terms of a target audience. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. That's exactly what people do.
Yeah, so that's my definition of marketing nouns. Now, something that a lot of people don't think about is looking at marketing from a verb aspect or marketing verbs. And if you look at the definition of a verb, as I said before, it's a verb asserts something about a subject of a sentence, expressed in actions or events or states of being. So if you look at this again and think about the actions or states of being that your prospects will go through to get to a solution that you sell, because that's all we all do is we just solve solutions or solve problems by solutions. And you market to these verbs, you market to the actions they're going through. So, real estate agents again, which is sort of an analogy I touched on before, let's think about what are the actions people go through when they're buying a house, or think of upgrading their house. So, the actions might be finding out how much the houses in a particular area are worth, finding out how much their own house is worth to see, can they afford the difference, to roll up to a new house and things like that. And then they find an agent to deal with. So that's sort of, the mental process or the mental actions or the mental nouns someone goes through in a house buying process. They actually are taking different actions all the way through. So if you can market your business and your services differently to the way these people are doing the actions through the process, it's another way of thinking about how you can actually reach that target market by actually delving deeper into the actual verbs they are doing. Does that make any sense at all?
Yeah, I do. I like that. It's quite an interesting perspective on it, as it usually is when you come up with one of your ideas. I like that because it is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that there's a good and a bad in this, but it's definitely a different perspective. Nouns is one of those things. I market to parents, I market to homeowners, I market to, as you say, all these nouns. My solution is for X, Y, Z. It's a standard way to describe what you do, your little elevator pitch, as it was. But the verbs gives you another way to look at it. So for when you're looking for people with your solution, people who your solution might help, instead of looking for homeowners, parents, etc., you're actually looking for people in maybe potentially in a particular phase of a process. So as you say, they might be looking at market prices. They might be searching for an estate agent, a real estate agent, to list their property. They might be evaluating a list of agents to list their property. Or even at a higher level, as you say, they may be renovating their home. And that has a series of steps that they go through as well. So in a way, it's almost another way of identifying potential people to market to, as well as imagining or picturing them in your mind to see how you can address them, yeah?
Yeah, exactly right. Because normally when you talk about demographics and things like that, working out who your target market is, it's very much based around nouns. You very much break your market or your target market and your audience into nouns. Homeowners in Alberta, Canada, who want roof tiling, which is fine. But then if you actually break that subset down, there's going to be people going through different actions of that buying cycle, which is the verb component. So then what you want to try and do is look at your marketing and go, okay, when people are doing this part, this action in the buying process, how am I getting in front of them? How am I reaching them? What message am I putting together to reach them? Because it's a different sort of message and potentially a different path to market than it would be if they were 5 steps down the action process, down that buying cycle. So it's a different lot of communication, a different type of medium. For example, in one area you might be looking at doing banner ads, or you might be doing pay-per-click advertising. But once they're actually into a different part of the buying cycle, it's all about the proposal and the presentation. Or it might be about some direct response scenarios because, hypothetically, if you're a real estate agent, if we try and, roll this analogy out a little bit, obviously you can put together some free reports around the value of houses in a particular area that you service and give them away for free. So when people are in that initial action verb of looking just of what, roughly I'm thinking of moving down to the coast, a coastal town, what are the house prices like down there? Well, maybe you can do some free reports that help people get educated when they're doing that part of the buying cycle. And you get them to actually opt in and give their name and email address. Then the next step is to actually obviously consider listing their current house on the market to be able to obviously afford to go down to the coast. So could you offer some sort of, follow-up marketing piece that hits that next verb, that next action they're taking, which is, what is my house worth? So once you've got them into your funnel with the first step, which is what are the house values in this area worth, then can you follow them up in some sort of upsell sequence or back-end marketing sequence, which hits the next verb, which is, let me come and value your home for you. And then try and work out in the next step of that sequence, how can you actually convince them to list with you? It's about hitting those different verbs all the way through.
That example actually has really helped me solidify something that was rattling around in the back of my brain. Because traditional marketing is about nouns, including targeting. It's a lot easier to target people with a noun. And you need to think a little bit more if you're trying to, say, reach an open audience, an audience that you don't currently have, through the verbs. The verbs are, though, more targeted. They're people in a stage of a process, as you say, a state of being. So in a way, it's I hesitate to say better, but it's definitely can be a more targeted way, and you potentially could get more response from that. But in your example, as you say, if they're in your funnel, or you can identify the funnel or process that they're going through, you can identify those stages, those verbs, and you can address them. So it's a great way of planning and producing some very targeted marketing materials, or doing some marketing actions, making some contact, whatever, to get a better response. So, but making it the easy way to do it, from your example, is if they are in a funnel that you know about, whether it's your funnel or they're in a process that you know about. If they're out there in the world, it gets a little trickier, and you'd have to, I guess, be a little bit more creative about your marketing.
You could almost look at it in the terms of that the verbs are a subset of the nouns. So the first thing you have to do in business is obviously work out what is your target market. And that's a verb statement. I market to... Sorry, it's a noun statement. Sorry, I'm getting confused. It's a noun statement. I market to nouns in noun who need noun. I market to homeowners in Alberta, Canada who need roof tiling. That's your target market. But then once you're actually trying to market to that target, that's where the nouns come in. So you need to actually go, okay, this is my target area.
Verbs, dude. Verbs.
I'm going to lose this. I'm going to completely confuse people. I know.
It's fine. I'll keep you on track. Carry on, because it's a great example.
It's the verbs that you need to actually consider. I clearly failed in English in high school. It's the verbs that you need to consider as the different marketing messages that you need to actually target to that target market.
Yeah. That is it. I mean, that is it in a nutshell. I guess that's kind of my rather rambling comments were going in that direction, but you really have got it down very well. As you say, the nouns are the start point, the generalism, and the verbs become the specifics. And it's a good way. That's a good way to say it, and I think it's a good way to plan things out. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's, I think, the lesson in all of this is to say, okay, hopefully everyone has a clear identity of their target market, and a lot of them talk about doing the avatar. So a lot of people talk about creating your avatar. My target market is a 35-year-old male with one kid who is a tradesman who went to trade school 15 years ago, has learnt the trade, is great on the tools, now has started his own company, knows really well the technical aspects of his job, but has no idea how to market it, hypothetically. That might be your avatar. His name's Greg, he's got a wife, he likes to play footy on the weekend. People talk about actually being very, very clear about your avatar. And I think that's really important. But all you're doing there is just nouning your target market or nouning your avatar. And that's great. It's the first step. But then you want to actually go and start verbing it up. And by what I mean by that is, as I've said, is that now you go, okay, now I know this avatar. Let's think about, put yourself in their shoes, and what processes do they go through? What frustrations are they having? What actions, events, or even emotional states of being are they going through in their life? And try and isolate as many as you can, because they're the separate verbs they're experiencing. And then you can market to each of those verbs in a number of different ways, whether it be part of your marketing funnel where they sign up for something and get a free report or an opt-in or a quote for a quote, and then you have the process mapped out. And as you actually get that initial touch or interaction with that prospect, work out what action they're currently going through, because that way you can work out what action will they do next. And once you understand that, that's where your marketing can get really, really powerful, to actually sort of market through those states of beings, those events or actions that they're going to go through.
And this really does speak to the better marketing and targeting advice. If you get into this, the first thing that you need to do, and any business marketing, any business to any client base, is to clearly and fully understand your audience. And I think this noun and verb model is great for that, because, as you say, a lot of people, they build these avatars, but if you analyze your avatar, however much detail you think you've gone through in how many children they have, if they're married or whatever, what their education was, they're nouns, as you say. And what will help you connect with these people will be in the main, will be the verbs. Once you have an understanding of those nouns about that person, the verbs will add the detail. They'll add almost the empathy for the person going through that process, the steps or the states of whatever it might be, whether it's buying or selling a house, buying or selling a car, using a particular piece of software on a computer, or trying to achieve a result in their business. They all go through states. They all go through verbs because they're doing things. So it's a great way to drill down into that. Yeah,
well, I think it's probably worth. Let's talk about some examples off the top of our heads. Obviously, I recently went on a honeymoon, so let's sort of talk about that. The noun component of that is, if you're a travel agent, I market to people in Melbourne who need a holiday. That's generally, to a high level aspect, what people will consider their target market as a travel agent, because it's just a holiday. So then, okay, that's fine. That's the noun element. Let's talk about the verbs and what process someone goes through when they're organising a holiday. First thing is they need to work out what sort of event the holiday is for, which is the verb side of things. In our instance, it was a honeymoon. And the first action we take is, okay, where can you possibly go on your honeymoon? Now, obviously, you can go all around the world, but there's certain places, like for us, being in Australia, we wouldn't have gone to Sydney for our honeymoon because we'd go there all the time. So having some sort of marketing material that you have out there to help people make that first decision of, where should we go? So maybe you have a website where people can, honeymoonideas.com.au, for example, could be a website you create to target people in that action. Maybe you have a brochure that when they come into your travel agent, you hand them, it's simply a guide to help them understand all the possible places around the world they could go on a honeymoon, pros and cons on each of the ones. So you talk about the, Fiji or the Maldives or Europe or America or Canada or wherever it might be as different honeymoon destinations and the pros and cons of them. And then the next step is, once the person's figured out where they want to go, is choosing the hotels and activities they should do while they're there. So that's the next verb that you go through in the process. So you go, okay, we're going to go to the Maldives for our honeymoon. Now the next step is to work out what hotel do we stay at. So then you have the Maldives specific marketing material, brochures, guides, websites, reviews, articles. They're the sort of actions that you go through, and they're the things you need to actually target, because the communication that you have to someone who's planning a honeymoon and has no idea where they're going to go is a completely different conversation, completely different marketing material you need for someone who's already identified a country they're going to. So that's the sort of thing you need to think about in your marketing when you are a travel agent targeting that sort of thing.
Good point. A good example. Obviously, a well-researched example by you.
Well, the good thing is that I can kind of spitball that because I just went through that. I just went through those verbs. I experienced those actions.
All this is about, it's still back to targeting. It's still back to message to market match, right?
Absolutely. It's all strategery. And that is a word, I guarantee it.
Oh dear, you and your magic words. But it is it's message to market match. It's another way to help you understand your market, understand what they're going through, and match your solution to their situation, or to create information. In the case of your travel agent there, it's a case of being the person with the better service in that case. Yeah, somebody goes into a travel agent and you walk in and you say, hey, we're going on a honeymoon. They kind of wave at you and show you a huge pile of a wall of brochures with every resort in every different part of the world, and kind of leave you to it. That's not great service, and they shouldn't really expect to get a sale out of that unless you're desperate. Whereas somebody that asks you a few questions, finds out your state, as you say, you might not have said we're going on a honeymoon. So they find that out. They position you in that state. They find out where you are in the process, and then they have materials, or they have at least got information they can provide you that's relevant to the state you're in. If you haven't got a clue where to go, in country-wise, even as you say, that's a great place to start, because otherwise you end up looking at 20 brochures, each with 5 or 10 holiday resorts in from everywhere around the world. You can sit there for hours on end, not being able to focus on it, not being able to take all the data in.
Absolutely. I think the way I would describe what you just said there is it's about matching your communication to the state of being of your target market at that stage, because people go through different states. And, a lot of people talk about it as customer service. But to me, customer service is what happens after they've actually signed the dotted line. Everything until they've signed the dotted line and committed to you is not customer service. It's marketing and sales.
Yeah.
And I think that's potentially a whole other episode, because customer service is what happens after they're giving you the dollar. That's you're serving a customer. They're not a customer until they've paid money with you. There's the prospect.
Good point.
So it's all about marketing at that stage. So it's about targeting your communication and your sales material and your marketing to not only help guide people and walk them through that process once they've hit your funnel, but also consider that some people might come into your funnel halfway through the process. So what you have already to target them and communicate with them and make a connection with them. If we go to that real estate example, some people may have already realised they want to pack up their bags and move from England to Spain. So that's fine. So when they come to you in England to sell their property, you don't need to actually have any marketing material for them to help them work out what real estate's worth in Spain, because it's completely irrelevant to you. but you have to have some marketing material to communicate to that person who's already at stage 2. They've already gone through some of those actions. So how can you put them in a funnel that is separate to other funnels, that is specific people who come into your world based on starting point of what is my house worth?
Do you know the biggest example of that, and it's something that we talk about quite regularly, but the biggest example of that is one that you've already mentioned now, which is the differentiation between a prospect and a customer. Because the way that you communicate with a prospect and the way that you communicate with a customer is different.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I would say that's a different noun. Because, a name of a person, place, thing, or abstract idea, you could kind of argue that, well, I don't even argue, I think it's really out for debate, that a customer is a different noun. They're not taking a different action. They're still, it's just them. But once they're a customer, they might be going through different actions, which is different verbs. But the category of them is that it's a different noun. So it's a completely different bucket altogether.
Yeah, it is, but it also, as you say, brings up different verbs as well.
Exactly.
Because they'll be going through different states. They'll go through some similar states as your prospects will, because they'll want another X, Y, or Z, but they'll also go through different states. So you're kind of starting a different funnel, maybe.
That's exactly what you're doing, or what you should be doing anyway if you're really focusing on your marketing. Every business is going to have, most likely, multiple nouns. If you look in our telco space, we've got phone system buyers, we've got service people who need service work on their phone system, who might not have bought the system from us in the first place. So they're two completely different nouns in our business. And the process they go through is a completely different set of verbs.
This is, I guess, kind of the action point in this, is to look at your business. And look, first of all, for the nouns. If you haven't done this, if you don't have the nouns that describe the people that are your prospects, if you don't have an idea who these people really are, then the first thing you should do is look for that. Look for the ways to describe the people. As your example, Pete, is great. I do, what is it?
I market to noun, in noun, who need noun.
I market to noun, in noun, who need noun.
I market to homeowners in Alberta, Canada, who need roof tiling.
Yeah. And your telco business has probably got the same thing. Absolutely. You market to business owners in Australia
who need phone system to support. We market to businesses in the eastern seaboard of Australia who need a brand new phone system. We've got heaps of those little nouns.
Yeah, I market to information marketers all around the world who need digital media.
Absolutely.
There you go. So it's a relatively easy thing to do, but once you've got that, the more important thing. I'm really warming to this, even though I was scared of it because it was just like an English lesson when I was thinking about it. But once you've got those nouns, it's drilling down. It's coming up with the verbs, the states that those people are in. For example, your telco business, you say these different people. I have different people. I have people who come to me who don't know anything about video production for the web. They really don't have any idea. They know they need it. They know it's a powerful medium, but they don't actually know what it takes to do it. And so I have to be prepared in my marketing and sales activities to educate that customer. And by the way, educating your customer is a great way to build trust and authority with them.
Absolutely.
If you're someone out there with just got a website that says, yeah, click my PayPal button and pay me some money, I'll make you a video, that's going to get you a certain kind of client. If you're willing to actually educate your clients, it's a way to build trust and rapport with that client. But I also have people, like you. Your first job to me was for me to take something that you'd already recorded yourself, you'd already partially edited, you just wanted me to finish it off. And that's the other end of the spectrum. That's, I'd class you more as an expert user. who I can have a high-level conversation with about, the technical topics, and we can talk quite intelligently about your requirements and come up with a very precise spec. You didn't at the time expect me to bring too much of my expertise to the table in terms of planning and all that.
Yeah, no strategery needed.
No strategery needed. As it turned out, we developed a relationship, and now I'm heavily involved in strategery for you.
Absolutely.
But a lot of my other clients who come to me, they're looking for that strategery up front. They're looking for somebody to help them go from nothing to a complete solution. And so while there's a noun involved with that, there's a lot of verbs that are extra for those clients.
Yeah, exactly right. And this is the thing, if we try and tie this back to the 7 levers, which I think is definitely worth doing to put in some context of the underlying flow or foundation of the show, is that this applies to your traffic generation lever in terms of, when you're going out there trying to grab more traffic, you try and target that traffic based on the verbs that your identified nouns are doing. When we're talking about another lever, which is obviously upsells and cross-sells, what can you be doing? Because, in that buying cycle, when someone actually is physically then gone through the first couple of levers and are in that stage of making a transaction, what can you do in that moment to upsell? It's a different type of verb or different action that person's going through. Would you like fries with that is a great, question to ask when people are actually already salivating at the McDonald's register, thinking about the hamburger they're about to get handed to them they can eat. There's more chance of them buying that extra chips right there and then in that moment because they're taking a different action. What is the actual state of being that they're in right now?
Absolutely. Verbs and context go hand in hand. That idea of being in a state it's a context, as you say. Do you want fries with that is incredibly relevant if you stood at a counter in McDonald's. If you stood in a sporting goods store, it's not quite so relevant. And I know that's a bit of a silly example, but it clarifies that these people are more in a frame of mind to do something when they're in a certain state. And so you can. I think this applies to a lot of the stages and the 7 levers. The traffic generation, as you say, I talked at the beginning about this being a great way to focus your targeting. If you're doing something like pay-per-click advertising, understanding the state that somebody might be in and that who you want to market to can target the keywords that you choose and target your adverts to those people to generate more targeted traffic. More targeted traffic that is in a particular state of mind looking for a particular solution is going to improve your opt-ins. And once they're opted in, if they were well-targeted traffic and your message is good and your message to market match, which you've developed through knowing the verb and the state, that's going to help your conversion.
Absolutely.
So those first 3 levers, this is vital stuff. And then, as you say, selling more items in a transaction. If they're in a state, if they are at the checkout or in the market for a particular kind of item, then that's the time that you can suggest complementary items. So this is incredibly relevant to a lot of our 7 levers.
Absolutely. So the action point for this week, I think, is for people to sort of take this concept and just think about it. Think about breaking down, the actions that your prospects go through to get the solution to the problem that you help solve. And then work out and make sure you're marketing specifically, uniquely, and concisely to each one of these verbs you've just identified. Hopefully you've already sort of started thinking about the nouns that you target, something that Dom spoke about before, but now think about the actions that these people take throughout that buying process, throughout the discovery process of the solution that you sell, because different people discover your solution in different ways and go about trying to find that solution in different ways, and make sure you actually are targeting each of those different types of actions events they go through or states of being they're actually in, because that will really help enhance the conversion rate of that communication and marketing you're already doing in your business.
And just one little thing I just want to say about that is I talked about the example of targeting your pay-per-click advertising and in my little piece, but this is also about the other example that I gave where it's about how you communicate to these people. If they come to you, if you're a bricks and mortar business or you're somebody who communicates with clients that make inquiries, if you're ready for people that are in these different states, if you have the communication, Pete's example of the holiday company is an example of that, where if you've got materials that help people at those different stages of the process, it's going to improve every aspect of your business.
Absolutely.
That's fantastic, mate. I am now no longer afraid of verbs and nouns, which for a man of my age is something quite significant. I just want to thank our second sponsor, just a quick slot in here. Our second sponsor this week is Read It For Me, the book review service. Still continue to be amazed by the stuff that these guys turn out. They produce multimedia book reviews. They produce videos and cheat sheets in PDF format for many of the current and past very popular business and personal development books. It's a paid service on a monthly basis. You go into their membership area and you can just check out these fantastic reviews of, well, I don't think I've found anything that we've talked about that they haven't done one for, and certainly they're up for reviewing anything that you recommend. It's a great way not only to find out about a new book that's out there, or a book that you might not have read, but it's also a great way to go back over a book that you have read and remind yourself of the key points. If you want to try out this service, go to readit4.me/PreneurCast. You can see a video there, me and Pete going through the membership area, and you can see exactly the materials that are in there for the different books that they review. And you can have a little trial of the service through that link, and if you go to that link, you will get a discount on your membership fees because you're a PreneurCast listener. So thank you to Read It For Me for that, and helping our listeners out with their information consumption, which is something that we're big on.
Absolutely.
All right, buddy. Before I lose my high at being all cool with nouns and verbs, I think we'll wrap it up there.
Sounds good. We'll tackle some new and exciting topics next week.
Cool. See you then, buddy.
Ciao.
You've been enjoying another fine episode of PreneurCast with Pete Williams and Dom Gocher. Make sure to hang out with the boys online at PreneurMedia.tv or drop them a line via PreneurCast@PreneurGroup.com.